Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm so thrilled you're joining us today because, well, today we are embarking on a mission to decode a massive, and I mean a truly industry-defining shift.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are analyzing how a legacy design software giant is using artificial intelligence to literally reshape the physical world around us.
And I just want to say the sheer scale of what we are unpacking today, it honestly cannot be overstated. For our roadmap, our sources are Autodesk's Q4 2026 earnings report and the accompanying conference call transcript from February 26, 2026.
Okay, let's unpack this because if you are an investor looking for the next seismic market shift, or maybe a tech strategist tracking the evolution of AI, or, just insanely curious about the invisible digital infrastructure that dictates how the buildings you live in and the machines you use are constructed,
Yeah.
this deep dive reveals the blueprint of our future.
It absolutely does. And to set the stage here, Autodesk is the behemoth behind tools like AutoCAD, Revit, Fusion. They are effectively the operating system for architecture, engineering, and manufacturing globally. But the central narrative driving our analysis today is a really profound corporate paradox.
Right, the paradox.
Yeah. We are looking at an organization that just posted absolute blowout financial metrics while simultaneously, and this is the crazy part, initiating a highly disruptive internal restructuring. They are deliberately shaking the foundation of their own business to prepare for what their CEO, Andrew Anagnost, calls an agentic AI world.
We really have to start by putting those Q4 2026 headline numbers on the table because they are just a financial blockbuster. I mean, total revenue hit $1.96 billion.
What is huge?
Right, it's a 19% increase year over year. But the real standout, the thing that caught everyone's eye, is billings, which surged an incredible 33% to $2.8 billion. They completely crushed consensus EPS expectations, coming in at $2.85 versus the expected $2.64, and generated a massive $972 million in free cash flow just for the quarter.
It's staggering.
It is. You read a report like that, and you naturally assume they're going to project aggressive, unbridled growth for the next year.
Wait, but what's fascinating here is the stark contrast between those historic Q4 results and the deliberately measured tone of their future guidance. Their CFO, Janesh Moorjani, repeatedly invoked this concept of prudence during the call.
Prudence.
Exactly. For fiscal 2027, they are guiding total revenue between 8.0 and 8.17 billion and free cash flow between 2.7 and 2.8 billion. So they are actively tempering Wall Street's expectations. And it is entirely driven by a major structural shift they are essentially forcing themselves to undergo.
And that perfectly brings us to the roughly $100 million restructuring charge and the 7% reduction in force they announced. Now, layoffs in tech are not exactly a novel concept right now. We see it everywhere. But digging into the transcript, this reduction is heavily concentrated in their customer-facing sales roles.
Yeah, the sales team.
I have to play the skeptic here for a second. If I am running a massive enterprise and my sales engine just delivered a $1.96 billion quarter with billings up 33%, the absolute last thing I'm going to do is blow up that exact same sales team. I mean, that seems like an incredibly reckless gamble.
It is a massive risk, but it is a very calculated one. This restructuring is the culmination of their go-to-market optimization strategy. They are completely overhauling their channel partner incentives. You have to remember, for years, the software industry, and Autodesk in particular, relied on a model where sales reps and channel partners could make a very, very comfortable living simply by renewing existing licenses.
The easy money.
Exactly, the easy money. But the new incentive structure drastically reduces compensation for basic renewals, and it heavily weights it toward winning brand new business or expanding existing accounts into entirely new product ecosystems.
So they are forcing their reps to transition from farming existing accounts to actively hunting for new deployments.
Yeah.
But you still risk alienating your top performers with that. If you cut the renewal commission of a seasoned enterprise rep, they might just, walk across the street to a competitor, taking those million-dollar client relationships with them.
Right. That is the exact friction Moorjani acknowledged on the call. When you alter the compensation mechanics of a massive global sales force, you guarantee short-term disruption. Partners are going to delay deals while they figure out the new profitability models. Internal teams have to adjust to new territories. Autodesk explicitly built this friction into their guidance, estimating cash restructuring outflows of $135 to $160 million in early fiscal 2027. They are fully aware this will hit in the short term.
I really want you, the listener, to pause and consider the sheer conviction required to make that call. They are intentionally throwing a wrench into a record-breaking revenue engine, just to capture a long-term AI-driven business model. They are essentially rebuilding the airplane engine while flying at 30,000 feet because they firmly believe the destination demands a completely different type of propulsion.
That is the perfect way to frame it. And that destination is a fundamental rewiring of how physical work is actually executed globally.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we are stepping into the buzzword of the hour AI. In the current market, every single SaaS company claims to have an AI moat just because they plugged a language model into their search bar. But CEO Andrew Anagnost came out swinging on this call. He claims Autodesk possesses a highly unique, nearly impenetrable moat for agentic AI.
And we need to draw a very hard line between standard generative AI and what Autodesk means by agentic AI. We are not talking about a language model generating a marketing email or summarizing a meeting transcript. We are talking about autonomous agents making physics-based 3D design decisions that will eventually be manufactured or constructed in the real world. Anagnost laid out 3 specific pillars for this moat. The first one is data.
Let's drill into that. How does their data differ from the massive data sets companies like OpenAI or Anthropic are using?
Standard AI models are trained on the internet, text, images, human conversation. But to build an AI agent that can actually design a structural beam for a skyscraper or a titanium part for an aerospace engine, that agent needs massive quantities of high-fidelity, geometry-rich, real-world physical data. It needs to implicitly understand load-bearing physics, material stress, and complex spatial relationships. Very few organizations globally possess decades of proprietary 3D physical data sets. Autodesk is one of them. The second pillar he highlighted is context.
The context piece of the transcript really stood out as the true differentiator because it goes far beyond just knowing how to design a cool shape.
Precisely. If an AI agent suggests a structural change to a building design, it cannot make that suggestion in a vacuum. It must operate inside a live, incredibly complex project environment. Does moving that load-bearing wall violate local municipal building codes? Does it clash with the HVAC routing that the mechanical engineers updated literally 5 minutes ago? Who holds the permissions to approve that structural alteration? Because Autodesk's platform acts as the system of record where all these disciplines converge, the AI operates with the full context of regulations, physics, and human workflow dependencies.
Which leads directly into the third pillar, expertise. Anagnost noted that they did not just pivot to AI when it became popular a couple of years ago. They have been building a dedicated 3D AI research and development team for nearly a decade.
You simply cannot brute force your way into 3D physical AI overnight, no matter how much capital you deploy. And they provided concrete, real-world proof points during the call to demonstrate this isn't just theoretical posturing.
Yes, the metrics they shared regarding the auto-constraint feature in Fusion are the perfect example of this. For context, auto-constraint is an AI tool that automatically applies mathematical constraints to 3D sketches, basically the rules that hold a digital model together so it behaves correctly when you change a dimension. Since its launch, this AI model has delivered over 3.8 million constraints, up from 2.6 million just last quarter. But the real insight is the acceptance rate.
Right, the human validation.
Exactly. Commercial users are accepting the AI's constraints almost 2/3 of the time, and 90% of those sketches are fully constrained by the AI. This proves we have crossed the Rubicon from AI as a helpful co-pilot to AI as a reliable worker that executes autonomous tasks.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really explains the logic behind their strategic partnerships. During the call, they highlighted their collaboration with World Labs, a company pioneering spatial reasoning for physical AI. Spatial reasoning is the ability of an AI to understand the three-dimensional world, knowing that two solid objects cannot occupy the same space, or understanding how light and gravity interact with a specific geometry. They are deploying this first in media and entertainment, but Anagnost explicitly stated this will expand into digital twins, factory automation, and robotics.
Okay, so they have this massive technological moat, and they are building spatial reasoning capabilities.
Yeah.
But having the best theoretical technology doesn't matter at all if your enterprise customers aren't actually adopting it. Which brings us to a major theme from the transcript convergence. This is the strategy of blending the design phase, the digital drawing board, and the make phase, the physical construction or manufacturing, into one seamless cloud ecosystem. The specific customer anecdotes they shared to illustrate this were genuinely fascinating. For example, they highlighted a global brewing company using Fusion.
That is such a brilliant use case. You wouldn't intuitively link a global brewery with advanced 3D design software, but this brewery is using Fusion to design and manufacture spare machine parts directly on their production lines. Instead of waiting weeks for a specialized part to ship from a global supplier, and facing massive downtime, they are engineering and making the solution locally to maintain equipment uptime. It is a complete collapse of the traditional supply chain.
They also brought up Prestige Group, the top 3 real estate developer in India, selecting Autodesk as its core design platform, and a special-purpose shipbuilding firm with over 2,000 employees adopting Fusion Manage for multi-supplier collaboration.
The shipbuilding example perfectly illustrates the sheer complexity Autodesk is targeting. A modern vessel is essentially a floating smart city. You have thousands of components sourced from hundreds of different suppliers. Managing the engineering alignment across that global supply chain is a nightmare. By moving to Fusion Manage, they are unifying that massive, historically fragmented ecosystem.
And it extends right into heavy construction. 3 of the E&R top 400 contractors, including Robbins, adopted Forma for construction this quarter alone.
What unites the brewery, the shipbuilder, and the mega contractor is a fundamental rejection of legacy tools. Anagnos delivered a fantastic soundbite on the call regarding this. He used to famously say that disconnected computer files were dead things working. Now he has updated that philosophy, stating that complex, rigid, behind-the-firewall IT systems are the new dead things working. The industry is aggressively demanding cloud-native convergence.
Which brings up what I consider to be the most mind-bending detail buried in this earnings call. We have been talking about users up to this point, the architects, the engineers, the shipbuilders. But as this convergence accelerates, Autodesk is rolling out API consumption pricing through Autodesk Platform Services, or APS. They are explicitly building a model to charge for machine-driven 247 usage of their software architecture.
This is a profound paradigm shift. Customers are utilizing Autodesk's APIs to build their own custom agentic workflows. Imagine an engineering firm that sets up a system where their own local servers are constantly querying Autodesk's cloud, running complex structural simulations, or processing generative design permutations 24 hours a day without a human ever touching a keyboard. Autodesk is monetizing that automated machine activity. The AI itself, the automated workflow, is essentially becoming the billable customer.
If the AI is doing all the heavy lifting and custom workflows are running around the clock, I really have to step in as the proxy for this skeptical investor here. During the Q&A portion of the call, analyst Jason Salino asked the exact question every software executive is dreading right now. He asked, if this AI makes architects and civil engineers wildly efficient, won't engineering firms need to hire fewer of them? And if headcounts drop, doesn't that inherently mean Autodesk will sell fewer software licenses or seats?
This raises an important question. It is the existential threat hovering over the entire SaaS industry right now. But Anagnos' counter-argument centered entirely on what he defines as the capacity problem. He argued that we are not operating in a market with finite, easily achievable building goals. There is a massive structural deficit in human capacity, capital, and materials required to build what the global economy currently demands.
I hear that argument, but does efficiency truly not destroy jobs? If a team of 5 architects can now do the work of 20 thanks to agentic AI, the firm owner might just decide to pocket the margin difference and fire 15 people.
That is the common fear, but it ignores the reality of the current macroeconomic environment. Look at the sustained, massive surge in data center construction required to power the AI boom itself. Look at the desperately needed infrastructure overhauls across North America and Europe. The backlog of critical projects far outpaces the number of qualified professionals available to actually execute them. This is a classic example of the Jevons paradox. As a technology increases the efficiency with which a resource is used, the rate of consumption of that resource actually rises due to increasing demand.
So the thesis is that the bottleneck simply moves. The firm doesn't fire those 15 architects. They bid on 3 times as many projects because they finally have the digital leverage to execute them. The overall capacity of the industry expands.
Exactly. The human professionals remain essential, but the scope of what one individual can oversee expands dramatically. However, the more crucial point is how Autodesk is strategically shifting its total addressable market to capitalize on this. They are actively moving away from the traditional model of merely monetizing the individual user's specific task via a licensed seat.
We really need to dig deep into that market shift because this is where the entire business model transforms. CFO Janesh Moorjani noted that consumption-based models already represent approximately 17% of their total revenue. They're aggressively pushing past the traditional SaaS model.
By transitioning to consumption-based pricing and charging for workflow and system automation, Autodesk is positioning itself to monetize the overall project value rather than just the design labor. When an enterprise uses Autodesk's platform to route a mega project from the initial conceptual design through rigorous physics simulations directly into the global supply chain and out to the active construction site, Autodesk is taking a toll on that entire data lifecycle. They are tapping directly into the wallet of the ultimate project owner, the entity deploying billions of dollars to build the data center or the hospital, rather than just selling a subscription to the structural engineering subcontractor.
It fundamentally elevates their position in the value chain. They are embedding themselves so deeply into the physical life cycle of the asset that the software platform becomes the central nervous system of the entire real-world build.
And this brings us full circle to the paradox we started with. This is exactly why they are willing to absorb a $100 million restructuring charge and intentionally disrupt their own sales engine right after a record quarter. They are forcing their entire global partner network to abandon the safety of renewing basic software licenses. They want their ecosystem hunting for these massive, highly complex, consumption-based project ecosystems.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive analyzing a staggering financial performance, nearly $2 billion generated in just 3 months. But by peeling back the layers of the earnings call and the Q&A, we've uncovered that for Autodesk, this Q4 is not a victory lap, it is a launch pad. They are actively sacrificing short-term comfort and issuing conservative guidance to execute a ruthless internal realignment. They are building an impenetrable moat forged from proprietary physical data, deep project context, and spatial AI expertise to dominate a future where human strategy and machine execution seamlessly construct our reality.
It is a masterclass in prioritizing long-term market dominance over quarterly appeasement. And analyzing their trajectory leaves us with a truly profound implication to consider. If Autodesk's AI agents are rapidly approaching the capability to autonomously understand the load-bearing physics, the municipal regulations, and the exact spatial geometries of a massive commercial building, what is the next logical leap? What happens when the software doesn't just assist humans in designing the structure, but actually transitions to become the autonomous digital brain operating that physical building for the next 50 years? How fundamentally will the built environment change when our physical infrastructure is constantly intelligently conversing with the digital platforms that birthed it?
A physical skyscraper that knows its own digital DNA, continuously running spatial simulations to optimize its own energy usage and maintenance for half a century. That completely redefines what a building actually is. Thank you for joining us, for challenging your assumptions, and for getting well informed with us today. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we will see you on the next Deep Dive.